guys. And you gotta watch yourself do it in front of a small group of guys.
Just actively making yourself uncomfortable. Right.
And now we're gonna throw things at you
Yeah.
while we do it.
All right, guys, good evening. Tonight, by way of introduction, I'm going to open with a little story. Everyone loves stories, right? So the story's called The Story of the Mexican Fisherman. An American investment banker was at a pier of a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman was docked. Inside the small boat were several large yellowfin tuna. The American complimented the Mexican on the quality of the fish and asked how long it took to catch them. The Mexican replied, "Only a little while." The American then asked, "Why don't you stay out longer and catch more fish?" The Mexican said he had enough to support his family and his immediate needs. The American then asked, "What do you do with the rest of your time?" The Mexican fisherman said, "I sleep late, fish, play a little, fish a little, play with my children, take siestas with my wife Maria, stroll to the village each evening where I sip wine and play my guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life." The American scoffed. "I have an MBA from Harvard, and I can help you," he said. "You should spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds, buy a bigger boat. With the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats, and eventually you would have a fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to the middleman, you could sell directly to the processor, eventually opening up your own cannery. You could control the product, processing, and distribution," he said. "Of course, you need to leave this small coastal fishing village and move to Mexico City, then Los Angeles, and eventually New York City, where you'd run your expanding enterprise." The fisherman asked, "But how long will this all take?" To which the American replied, 15 to 20 years or so." "But what then?" said the Mexican. The American laughed and said, "That's the best part. When the time is right, you announce an IPO, and you sell your company's stock to the public and become very rich. You'd make millions." "Millions? Then what?" The American said, "Then you could retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you could sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take siestas with your wife, and stroll to the village in the evening where you sip wine and play guitar with your amigos." Stories are great, like I said, but that's just a story, and we know that the Bible, as believers, talks about money, wealth, and possessions over 2,000 times. It's almost as if God knew that we were going to struggle in this arena. But that's because the Bible deals explicitly with the human condition. See, times have modernized, but people haven't changed one bit. And I'm going to share with you a parable now in Luke chapter 12, verses 13 through 21, the parable of the rich fool. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who made me judge or arbiter over you?" And he said, "Take care, be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man produced plentifully, and he thought to himself, 'What should I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops.' And he said, 'I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for you. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you. And the things that you've prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God.'" See, just before that parable that we're all probably pretty familiar with, Jesus is talking about hypocrisy, fear, and acknowledging God before men. So this guy reaching out and kind of interrupting Jesus was seemingly out of context. It'd be like Pastor Chris here preaching a bold message in church on marriage, and then some guy interrupts and says, "Yeah, tell my wife to stop shopping so much on Amazon." and I get that guy's pain, but I would never do that. But it seems kind of odd, at least when you're reading it. But that's what we do. We take a piece of the bigger message and we find a way to make it about us. But what did Jesus do? He met the guy right where he was at. And the guy was kind of asking for a yes or no question. Would he do it or would he not? And Jesus gave him a lesson. He cut right to the heart of the issue. He didn't dance around it like the way I kind of compared the two stories. He didn't dance around it and slowly guide the man to a revelation through a series of questions. He cut right to the heart of it and said, be on guard of all covetousness. So it's easy for us to look at the rich man in this parable as like a modern day Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and dismiss it as not applying to us, but the reality is this guy, by today's standards, wasn't really that wealthy. He was pretty rich, but he wasn't like great. He wasn't to those guys' level. He was more of an upper middle class kind of rich. But whether rich or poor, this is a heart posture that Jesus was addressing. And worldly contentment tells us that if we get enough things, then we'll be content. Notice how in the parable it says, soul, you have ample goods laid up for you for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry. And that's what the world believes. That's what the world believes. But the Bible tells us that if God is on the throne, we'll be content in all circumstances. And what did Paul tell us as he wrote the book of Philippians, literally from a jail cell with no possessions? He said, not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I'm in to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I've learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. Not things that strengthen me, but Him who strengthens me. Which brings me to the point, are we living for Christ? Are we truly living for Christ? And Pastor Bruce shared something a while ago that struck me that I've never forgot. He shared Philippians 1:21, to live is Christ, to die is gain. But he said if you replace Christ with anything else, we die at a loss. To live is money, to die is loss. To live is family, to die is loss. Are we living for Christ and not stuff? And maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you're asking yourself, what does living for Christ mean? What does it look like? And me personally, I've never been on a mission trip. I'm excited to go on one next month for the NYSUM New York City trip. But I saw a video one time of somebody in a third world country promoting a mission. I think it was here at church actually. And the man in the third world country said he feels bad for us Americans. He feels bad for people in the Western world because we have so many things to distract us from God. And he was grateful that he had so little things to distract him from God. We have our sports, hobbies, jobs. He just had God, and he was grateful with nothing. How? How is that? And Jesus tells us explicitly in the text, one's life does not consist of possessions. Are we trying to fill that God-shaped void in our hearts with things just like the man did that was approaching Jesus? It's a vacuum. If Jesus said yes to that man, it's probably not a leap to think that guy would have probably went on just to the next thing, and his covetousness and his pride would have just grown. But that man asked Jesus for something, and Jesus gave him a lesson, and he gave him truth, and that's what any loving parent does to us. Because what do we call a kid that gets everything they want every time they ask for it? They're spoiled. They're a spoiled kid. And how often is a spoiled kid fulfilled or content or at peace? Peace that transcends all understanding comes with knowing that our identity is not dictated in stuff. It's dictated through us accepting Christ and what he did for us on the cross, what was done for us. So you may be saying to yourself, I've accepted Christ, but I don't have that kind of peace, and I'm not content. Galatians 5:1 says, for freedom has set us free. Stand firm and do not submit to the yoke of slavery. See, something will always find a seat on the throne of our hearts. The world looks at submission to God as tyranny, but it's quite the opposite. It's freedom. And when we make a conscious decision to stiff-arm God and say to God that I don't want to fall under submission to you, we make a subconscious decision to say yes to whatever else climbs on the throne of our hearts. And something will. We all have a God, whether we realize it or not. And money is the all too common victor in most cases. But the man approaching Jesus here, though, he was a slave to money, and he wasn't even rich, as I touched on earlier. And that's a hard reality, because we either submit to God and we say to God, thy will be done, or God turns us over to our own desires and says to us, thy will be done. When money or anything else is on the throne of our lives, we look for it as a source of security. But what did King Solomon say that Elon Musk of his time about vanity and self-indulgence in Ecclesiastes chapter 2? He said, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil. And this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil I had expended in doing it. And behold, all was vanity and striving after wind. And there was nothing to be gained under the sun. What the world has to offer can never compare to what the Lord promises us on the other side of eternity. It's like we're kids in the backyard playing in the mud at our house, and our parents go out and say, let's go to Disney World. Clean up, it's time to go to Disney World. But we've never heard the term Disney World, let alone how much fun it is and how expensive it is for our parents. But we don't have anything to compare it to, so we say, no, leave me alone. I'm fine here playing in the mud. This is amazing. I love the mud. Not realizing what's waiting for us on the other side. In conclusion, what are we really asking God for? What am I asking God for? Examine your heart. Examine your heart and take inventory of your prayers. Are you the rich fool asking for Jesus to effectively be your lawyer out of selfish pursuits? Are you bringing your desire for things to God like he's a genie, or are you coming to the Lord in thanksgiving? Thanksgiving through praise, because you understand the gravity of what was done for you on the cross, that an infinitely just God granted us grace and mercy when we deserved everything but that. And he didn't turn his back on us. He died for us, sinners in need of a Savior. And whether we live or die now, accepting that, we win. Or are we striving after win? And there's two tough realities that Jesus frames at the very end of the parable. He says, this night, your soul is required of you. We're all going to give an account to the Lord one way or the other. So what are we really asking him for? And why are we asking him for it? Are we living to accumulate a pile of stuff and then die? Are we winning souls for Christ? Are we storing up our treasures in heaven where moth and rust won't destroy? Or are we storing up our treasures for a digital number on a screen that we'll probably never even see? Are we living for the opinions of others? Or are we living for God? Let's be real, guys. None of this matters. All this is temporary. All this is passing away. Anything living is trending towards disorder. It's dying. And what does the parable say? It says, in the things you prepared, whose will they be? Everything seems so permanent until it's not. People and humanity build buildings tall and dig tunnels deep, and then at the mercy of the elements, nature, and time, they just crumble. I mean, think of any abandoned building or ancient civilization. It's not long, absent people, that they fall apart and they crumble and they're overtaken by the earth again and by God. Same thing's going to happen to our houses, our cars, our 401ks, our lawns, our boats, everything. What are we doing that will be rewarded by God in eternity? Thank you, guys.
Are we doing sheets tonight or
What we did with the other guys, we're emailing them.
copy that?
Oh, the phone, John.
Yeah.
Sorry.